How do we manage the protein transition? Which food components can provably boost your immune system? What's the best way to validate health claims for food and food components? Listen to our food and health experts discuss the biggest questions facing the food, nutraceutical, and food ingredient industries today. Welcome to NIZO Talks Food and Health.
When consumers shop for food, food safety is rarely at the top of their mind because they see it as a given. Clearly, all food on the market must be safe and it's up to producers to ensure this. But the risk of contamination runs through the entire food production chain, from raw materials and ingredients to formulation and processing and on to the finished product. Some microbial contaminants are pathogenic and cause foodborne infection. Others produce toxins in food, which can be just as dangerous. As a food manufacturer, preventing outbreaks of foodborne illness is key. A health issue linked to your product can have serious repercussions for your company, your reputation, and your brand. Marjon Wells-Bennik, NIZO's principal scientist food safety, explains the danger of bacterial toxins in food and what food producers can do to minimize the risks. When consumers shop for food, food safety is always a given. It's not on top of mind of consumers, but it is not a given. There are many challenges along the way. Microorganisms can be present that can be pathogenic or can produce toxins. Today I will be discussing with Marjon Wells-Bennik, Principal Scientist Food Safety at NIZO, about this subject. Welcome, Marjon.
Hi.
So, food safety. We want to focus a bit on the toxins. Where do bacterial toxins come from and how do they get really into a food product?
Yeah, I'm very happy to share a bit on the knowledge that I have on this. Thank you, René. So maybe to start, I think everyone in their life will have had an episode of foodborne illness. So you eat something, you get sick. So this may be resulting in diarrhea, but it can also result in vomiting. And usually if that happens, when you get sick from a food that actually results in quick vomiting, this tends to be related to toxin production. So these toxins, when they are produced by bacteria, they tend to be produced in the food already. So the bacterium grows in the food, makes a toxin, and then this results in vomiting by a consumer. Now, there are different types of bacteria, many actually, and there are quite a few that can produce toxins. So one very common one is, for instance, Staphylococcus aureus. It's a very common microbe that is present on the skin of humans. So if a product is handled by someone that has that organism on the skin and it ends up in the food, it can grow and produce the toxin. But there are other bacteria such as Clostridium botulinum or Bacillus cereus, and these can also produce toxins in a food. And a very common foodborne illness and causing vomiting is, for instance, the growth of Bacillus cereus in Chinese takeaways, for instance. So these are the type of issues you're looking at.
Yeah, so bacteria can be causing that, but I also think that spore-forming bacteria can be important. So can you elaborate a bit on what are the spore-forming bacteria and why is it so important for food manufacturers?
Yeah, so there's two main groups of bacteria. Some are the majority is actually the organisms that just grow, vegetative organisms. And then there is a group, and this includes Bacillus cereus and Clostridium botulinum. They produce spores, and these spores are super resistant. So even a normal pasteurization treatment that is, for instance, used to pasteurize milk or a lot of other products, that doesn't take care of these type of spores. They easily survive. So after pasteurization, the spores are there. If they then grow in a product, the toxins may be produced if the organism can grow, and then that may lead to toxin production and foodborne illness if consumed.
Toxins in food, but how can we prevent food poisoning from toxins?
So the easiest way of doing it is making sure that there are no bacteria in the product that can lead to the illness. So this is something that the industry is actually aiming for in a lot of cases. So the processes are designed in such a way that the organisms that can make the toxins are inactivated. So this can be just a simple pasteurization, and that will kill organisms such as Staphylococcus, but it may require much higher heat treatments. So actually sterilization in the case of Clostridium botulinum and in the case of Bacillus cereus, for instance. So you really need to heat very high to inactivate the spores, or you can remove them, for instance, by bactification. Now, if you cannot do it, if you cannot inactivate the organisms by heat treatment, you will need to make sure that you control your product composition so that the organism cannot grow, or you can control the chain in which you keep the product, for instance, by storing at a low temperature.
Yeah. Challenges along the way that increase the risk of toxin contamination in food. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so any change in a food production chain can introduce risks. So for instance, if you use a new ingredient, you may have higher levels of certain contaminants that can produce toxins. If you tweak your ingredients or you remove, for instance, preservatives that are always used, that have always traditionally been used to keep these type of organisms in check.
For clean label, for example.
Yeah, if you remove them and you add clean label components, you need to really make sure that these organisms cannot grow out. And another potential risk is, of course, having a longer shelf life or storing at ambient conditions all of a sudden instead of in the cold chain. So these are the kind of factors that play a role in potential risks for outgrowth of pathogens.
And if you look at plant-based products, how would you?
Yeah, so there are a couple of potential risks there. What we see is that the levels of the contaminants may be much higher in the ingredients, so your starting level is higher. And of course, the processing may be different. So if we look at, for instance, fermented products, the cultures that are used to ferment, they may not grow quite as well on plant-based ingredients compared to, for instance, dairy. So if the acidification during the fermentation is slow, there may be potential overgrowth by the other bacteria that are present in the ingredients. Yeah. And that, if that happens and they grow to high levels, they may produce toxins, and then you have a potential risk.
Yeah. To get some insight into the safety of a product and the production of toxins, there are possibly tests or models present. Can you say a bit about what's possible there?
Yeah, so what you can do when you start making a new product, you can actually already calculate what are the levels that are in there? What is the effect of the processing that I'm going to do? What is the effect of the composition on growth? So you can use models to calculate inactivation of your target organisms. You can also calculate how the organisms will grow. But sometimes you don't have enough information, and then you really need to go back to the drawing table or actually to the lab and test. So you can actually do that by making the product and spiking it with the organisms that are posing a risk. And then you can actually test whether they grow and whether they produce toxins in the product that you're making. So overall, I think it's very important for food safety to have this overall view of what are potential risks, what are the organisms you need to look out for, and thereby design a safe product that is kept under the right conditions in the chain. Yeah.
So in the modern world where a lot of new products are entering the market, especially as a result of the protein transition, which is ongoing, you basically say that food safety plays an essential role. And
yeah, certainly. Yeah. So this is a relatively new group of products, and for other types of products we have decades of experience. For these we don't. And I think it's very important to keep safety in the back of the mind when designing new processes and products.
Okay, Marjon. Well, thank you very much. You explained about the potential of, let's say, having toxins in products, how to prevent that. Also, in a new world that you need to be very cautious about it. And there is a lot of technology available to help the industry with that. So thank you very much. This was NIZO Talks Food and Health. If you want to know more, please check out our website.